Hey friends, me again, your friend Ghostly Honey. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. Welcome back to One Bam. I know we are a little bit behind, and by a little bit I mean a couple months, and that's just, a lot going on, and it's okay to take time to yourself for yourself. And that is exactly what I did. But while I was doing that, I read Shudder, and you guys, what a wild ride. Here on One Bam, we do a summary, spoiler-free review, deep dive, and then final thoughts. I tell you all about how I feel about the book, and you guys, I have a lot of feelings. This month, I guess I was rooting for Betty. I was a Betty fan by the end of it. I didn't care for her. Did not care for her at all. I'm also not an Anthony Marino fan. I don't care about his movie Reverence. But we're gonna talk about everything and more right now. Let's get into it. All right, so Shudder by Melissa Larsen follows Betty. Betty just lost her father, and she's running away from everything. She breaks up with her boyfriend, leaves her mom, goes to New York to live with her high school friend and her boyfriend, and they introduce her to Anthony Marino. He's a director. She's offered the role of a lifetime, but Betty soon learns that there is more to the director and more to this film than she could have imagined. So the haul video I did where I bought the book, I was really eager to read it because I wanted to see the character growth, character journey, and the healing, because she did just lose her father. She's running from her trauma, running from her past. She left her boyfriend, left her mother, and I wanted to see the development of the character where she would learn to face her past, face her trauma, heal from her trauma, and go on the healing journey. Not quite what I got. Definitely disappointed in that regard, but the book was just, I was so frustrated. I was frustrated with the story. I was frustrated with the characters, especially Betty. She just made me so mad, but the book was so good. The descriptions were fantastic. The character development, while not in the direction I wanted it, was very good, and it was actually pretty strong. But that said, with the direction she did go in, the author did a really fantastic job from the start, steering her into that direction. And I really was like, from page one, I was like, Betty, what are we doing, Betty? What's happening, Betty? Like, don't do that, Betty. Don't say that, Betty. Just be honest, Betty. But all of that aside, the descriptions were fantastic. I really liked the idea of playing with trust and the character dynamics, while toxic was definitely interesting to kind of explore and delve into. As usual, we're going to do a warning. Whether you decide to read the book on your own or sit with me on your screen, I do want you to know that the book does contain mentions of suicide, graphic depictions of suicide, death of a parent, dealing with and living with loss, gaslighting, abuse, toxic and abusive relationships. Now, with that all out of the way, let's get right into the deep dive. After the death of her father, Betty moves to New York and leaves everything behind. She moves in with an old high school friend, Sophia, and Sophia's boyfriend, Ben. The two of them tell her that they can get her an audition with Anthony Marino. Anthony was the director of a film called Reverence, and Ben worked with Anthony on this film. That's how they're connected. Now, Reverence is Anthony's first and only film, and it's actually amassed quite the following, and everybody is like absolutely in love with Anthony and his vision. And honestly, the descriptions in the book are surreal. Sophia and Ben come through on their promise, and the three of them are at a bar. Soon Anthony shows up, and we get a clear picture on how impactful he and his movie have been on people. Anthony takes Betty to a restaurant, and he's interviewing her over dinner. Meanwhile, Betty, and it's very, very strange because Betty wants to be more. She wants to be different than what he's expecting and what he is used to, going so far as to tell him that she's never seen Reverence, but she's seen it tons of times. She's absolutely obsessed with the movie. Yeah, it was a little strange, and right here in this moment we get a little sprinkling of a weird dynamic between them. I even said weird dynamic that is potentially toxic. From the jump, it was a very weird kind of dynamic that they had. I wasn't into it. Still not into it. Let's continue. By the end of dinner and the audition, he offers her the role. It does require nudity, violence, and on-location filming at his family's cabin on a secluded island. The film crew is going to be small. It offers $20,000 when she agrees and $20,000 when they finish filming. And of course, Betty agrees to it. The next morning, we kind of see Betty's early morning routine, and she also texts Anthony. Sophia's about to leave to go to work, and she asks Ben if he's heard anything from Anthony, and Ben's like, haven't heard anything yet, but we'll probably get the good news by tonight. Oh, and Sophia's also going to be in the movie as an extra. Betty's phone vibrates, but she assumes that it's her mother, so she completely ignores it. Instead, she's trying to get information from Ben, anything about the movie. What's it about? What's her role in the movie? The only thing he tells her is that the title of the movie is Fear. Betty leaves the apartment, and for work she walks dogs. So she goes to pick up the first dog she's going to be walking for the day, and she checks her phone to see why it was vibrating earlier, and it wasn't her mother, it was actually Anthony asking her if she was free that evening. After walking the dogs for about 7 hours, Betty goes to Anthony's apartment, and he has her sit in the living room. Now, Anthony's got a camera on her, and the camera is displaying to his TV. He wants to see how Betty looks in HD, and he also wants her to see herself as he saw her the night before at the restaurant. Then the two of them start talking about her modeling career. She's done some small stuff back home. Then Anthony opens up to her about his film Reverence. He feels like it's missing something, and Betty is completely surprised because she thinks that the movie is beautiful. She was absolutely blown away by it. From there, they talk about her ex, and then Anthony brings up Cape Fear. It's a movie about revenge, and he recalls the movie really catching his attention when he was a child, and his movie, the one he cast Betty for, is going to be a response to that film. Betty tries to get more information about the movie, but before she can really get anything, Anthony reveals to her that the movie will not have a script. He wants to capture the reality of the moments, and he wants to capture the real Betty. Okay, weirdo. He puts on the movie Cape Fear, and the two of them watch it together. The next day, Betty's thinking about the movie and how she saw herself and her father in the characters. She's also thinking more about the movie Fear that Anthony's going to be filming. She's thinking of the reality of the movie, wondering if it's actually going to be safe. But she reasons, of course, Sophia wouldn't put her in danger, and Sophia would not put herself in danger. And besides, it's Anthony Marino. By this point in the book, I still don't know what that means. So there's that. There's too much hype around Anthony, and I don't see why. Betty is focusing on the dog she's walking and navigating herself to the park when her mom calls. The phone calls are a really good look into their relationship as it stands, and Betty is definitely understanding alternate meanings to what her mother is telling her. Oh, and surprise, her mom's in the city. She can be at the park in a couple of minutes. Betty's kind of like, no thanks. So she tells her mom, like, hey, I'm walking dogs, I'm kind of busy, and she hangs up on her. Clearly, they do not have the best relationship. At the park, Betty sits down at a park bench, and we see that she doesn't really talk to her mom, not like she would talk to her father. Two very different relationships. When Betty's mom finally shows up, the two of them greet each other, and Betty is reminded of a vacation her and her father took to Iceland, and she remembers her mother thinking the two of them are crazy. Clearly, their relationship is strained, and Betty's mom is telling her to come home, but Betty wants to stay, and she wants to be her own person. And I'm just gonna say, maybe there are better ways of doing that than running off with a complete stranger. Time to wake up and go. Betty packs up. She gets her stuff ready. Meanwhile, Ben is getting coffee. Sophia's getting ready. The two girls bring all their stuff downstairs. Anthony's there with the van. Ben's there with the coffee. Ben helps them load everything into the van, and they are on the road. Betty's nervous, but she's focused on the fact that you can drop everything and change your life. She's also thinking about Anthony, of course, and how his confidence is contagious, and as the trip goes on, she's feeling less and less nervous. After hours on the road, Sophia finally speaks up, and she's wondering where they're going. And of course, they're going to pick up another actor, Mads. The four of them come to a train station, and while they're waiting for Mads, Betty's asking about the movie. They give her like vague answers, and eventually she's asking about fear. Right? The title of the movie. What is she supposed to be scared of? Again, the idea of Betty not being part of the group and being conspired against comes up in the book. The four of them meet Mads at the platform, and Betty is in awe. Now, it's worth noting that Mads was actually in Anthony's movie Reverence. Mads greets all of them, then he greets Betty as Lola. Of course, Betty turns to Anthony and she's like, what gives? Lola's the name of her character, but she doesn't know that yet. And of course, Anthony doesn't tell her anything. Again, Betty feels excluded from the group, and the idea, my least favorite idea, of just trusting Anthony comes up. No thanks, man. But of course, Betty trusts him completely. As they're driving now, Betty is thinking about Mads. He is attractive, but she feels like pretending to be in a relationship with him is going to feel unnatural. Closing in on their destination, Anthony stops at a supermarket and tells Betty, yeah, by the way, Lola has bleached hair. Betty is surprised and she looks around to see the others' reactions, but they're not even paying attention. Anthony tells her, don't stress out about it, and places a hand on her thigh. Betty, girl, you need to run. The supermarket is in a very small town, and this is the last town before the cabin, which is on the private island. And Betty notes that the town doesn't feel welcoming and it's very worn down. They all go into the store and Anthony is talking to the woman at the front counter. This is Mrs. O. Then he leaves Betty with her, telling Betty to charm her. Betty's very uncomfortable, but she makes her way through the conversation and she finds out that Mrs. O has actually known Anthony since he was a toddler. Then she mentions other girls Anthony has brought to the island, and then she mentions her son, Sammy. Sammy and Anthony were like brothers. Everyone goes to the counter where Betty is talking to Mrs. O, and she rings them all up and they leave. They're going to be using a garbage scow, which is about the size of a small car, to get to the island. Anthony gives Betty one of his jackets and the guys load up everybody's bags onto the scow, leaving Betty and Sophia on the pier. And Betty feels like there's some kind of tension between the two of them. And again, the idea of Betty being an outsider comes up. And for a moment, Betty's in her own head thinking about how detached from the world this island is, and she wants to leave. Betty's pulled out of her own head when Mads helps her onto the scow and they all go to the island. On approach, they see that there are lights on in the main house, and Anthony is saying that Sammy must have turned on the generators for them. Once they're on the island, they take all of their bags into the house, and it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. There's one bedroom on the main floor, and there's another bedroom in the attic space. There's a pull-down ladder to access it, and the bathroom actually can be accessible from 2 doors. Betty's looking around, and she's wondering where are her and Mads going to be staying. Of course, they're going to be staying at the guest cottage. Upon hearing this answer, Betty goes into the bathroom and cries. Betty comes out of the bathroom and Anthony is right there. He tells her that he wants to do something, just the two of them, for her to stay in the bathroom and he'll be right back. Anthony comes back with bleach and a pair of scissors. Betty wants to tell him that she's a little bit overwhelmed, that she wants to do this tomorrow, but she doesn't say anything. The idea of leaving everything behind, and more importantly, leaving Betty behind, comes up again. Anthony takes her phone from her and explains that he does not want anything distracting from his movie. She feels like she's giving up her connection to the outside world, but she gives him her phone anyway. Then he tells her to remove her shirt, calling her Lola. She's hesitant, but she does it. Then he tells her to remove her bra. She does, and he tells her
that he was right about her, tells her how he can see the emotions clearly on her face.
Creep. Anthony then covers her shoulders with a towel and he cuts her hair. As he's cutting her hair, Betty recalls her boyfriend, her father, and how she loved her hair. Anthony finishes cutting and bleaching her hair and leaves her so she can take a shower. When she gets out of the shower, she catches her reflection in the mirror and she sees Lola. She returns to the group and they're mostly surprised at her new look. Ben gets up to get her a drink and then goes out with Anthony to get some firewood. Sophia goes to take a shower, leaving Betty and Mads alone. The two of them sit on the couch and they talk about Reverence, again, the movie that Betty didn't see. Then Betty mentions that she doesn't actually know what the movie they're filming is about. Mads doesn't explain anything to her, but he tells her that he's sure that Anthony knows what he's doing and that he owes Anthony everything. And honestly, the way he talks about Anthony is just a little weird. From this conversation, Betty realizes the devoted loyalty that Mads and Ben have to Anthony. She really has no room to talk though, because she knows that she feels the exact same way. Anthony wakes Betty up. She's a little disoriented with the sleep and the alcohol. Anthony tells her that Ben had made pasta, so she gets up, she gets herself a plate, she gets some water, she eats, then she returns to the group. Again, the idea of being left out comes up, and she actually tells Anthony as much. Anthony explains that he and Ben are showing Sophia and Mads where all the cameras are and that they are actually filming right now. Betty's kind of like, so everybody knew except for me. Anthony, of course, gaslights her and tells her, you're tired, you just need to go to bed. She needs answers. From here, Anthony leads Betty and Mads to the guest cottage. There's a lit path and a floodlight that's on a motion sensor. They get to the cottage, and it's really just a bedroom and a bathroom. There are no curtains on the windows. It's a little weird, and Betty kind of feels some type of way about it. Once they're settling in, Anthony leaves and Mads goes into the bathroom to clean up, and Betty spends the time thinking about her father. When Mads is done in the bathroom, he joins Betty in the bed, leaving space between them, and he soon falls asleep. Betty was kind of also drifting to sleep, but then she wonders if there's cameras in the cottage too. Betty wakes up early the next morning and she gets ready, she leaves the cottage, she kind of wants to explore the island now that the sun is up. She stops by the main house, but it looks like everyone's still asleep, and then she hears voices. Betty comes to the source of the voices. She sees Mrs. O and Sammy and a big rundown house. Mrs. O is going to her car, but Sammy stops her. They're talking about his father who used to hit him, but Mrs. O is more focused on the fact that Sammy doesn't visit his own father. Mrs. O gets in the car and leaves. Sammy goes back into the house. Betty goes back to the main house, and Mads tells her that Anthony was looking for her. Mads goes to make coffee. Betty finds Anthony and Ben setting up some more cameras in the house. After a moment, Anthony takes Betty into the office where he has all of the filming equipment organized and big monitors on the desk. Now, he tells her that since she didn't have a lot of stuff to wear, that he got her some things. Very revealing things. Little shorts, thin shirts. He gives her the clothes and she changes. And you guys, the power dynamic between them is icky. The coffee is done, and Anthony tells Mads to just wait a minute. Finally, he is going to tell Betty about the movie. Sammy is also in the movie, but Sammy doesn't know. What could go wrong, right? Betty isn't comfortable with the idea, but again, Anthony tells her to trust him. Sammy's gonna be at the main house in an hour, and he wants Betty to meet him. Again, she's not entirely comfortable with this, but Anthony reassures her. Before she could leave the room, though, Anthony reminds her that she is here with Mads, not him. Back at the cottage, Betty is thinking about her mother, but she has to remind herself that leaving was the best option. Then she recalls her ex, Tucker, being patient with her. That is until she hit him. Then he wasn't so patient with her. Mads returns to the cottage after a run, and Betty goes to the main house. Ben is cooking, and Anthony tells her to sit down so he can test the cameras. There's a knock on the door, and everyone stops what they're doing. There's another knock, and Sophia wonders if anybody's going to answer it. Anthony directs Sophia to sit on the couch, and he tells Lola, to go answer the door. She opens the door, and of course, it's Sammy. He brought them a crate full of potatoes and blackberries. Lola introduces herself, and Sammy does the same. She compares him to a snake, and the conversation between them is really awkward. And eventually, Anthony comes to the porch, and there is obvious tension between Anthony and Sammy. It is made very clear very quickly that Sammy does not want to be there, but it's his job to take care of them while they are there. Eventually, Ben also comes out onto the porch, and there are several moments in this conversation that Sammy seems to be warning Betty about Anthony. Ben and Sophia take the crate and go back inside. Anthony tells Sammy that they need firewood and they need their laundry done. Sammy leaves, and Anthony wraps his arms around Betty. She did such a good job. In the afternoon, Betty joins Sophia on the porch, and the two kind of slip up. They're being a little bit more comfortable with each other than their characters are supposed to be. Sophia saying that with her new hair change, Betty looks even more like her mother. Soon, Anthony gestures for Betty to go inside. He wants her to talk to Sammy. Betty's really uneasy about this, but she follows the sound of chopping wood anyway. Sammy greets Lola, and she hands him a bottle of water, and they have a short and very, very awkward conversation that eventually leads to the scar on his head. Sammy explains that when he was a kid, he was bullied by a kid named Archie. Now, at some point, Archie tried to kill him. So, of course, Sammy tried to kill Archie. Now, as if this conversation wasn't just peak socializing, Lola looks exactly like Sammy's ex, Darla. And Betty's also getting the feeling that Sammy actually thought she was his ex. Talk about awkward. After her super awkward conversation with Sammy, Betty goes back to the main house looking for Anthony. Of course, nobody knows where he is. Well, Betty wants to talk to him because she's feeling a little bit stupid. Of course, Anthony didn't pick her because she was special or he saw something in her or whatever she was thinking. He only picked her because she looks like Darla. And on top of all of this, she's hurt at the idea that Sophia knew about this and didn't even tell her. Betty goes into the main house and she goes into Anthony's office. She's looking at all of the monitors, seeing the camera feeds, and she spots Anthony in one of the cameras. So she goes to him and she wants to talk, but he's more focused on the camera. Evidently, Ben put it at the wrong angle, so he needs to fix it. It isn't until she asks about Darla that he finally gives her the attention that she honestly deserves. And he pulls her into the guest cottage. She tells Anthony that Sammy told her about Darla, and surprisingly, she's upfront with him, asking him if she is there because she looks like Darla. Anthony says that he's going to explain everything to her, but he doesn't understand why she's upset. Dude, really? And besides, she's doing great. Betty's wondering why Anthony made her to look like Darla. Why are they focused on Sammy? Honestly, she feels like they're actually bullying him. Anthony assures her that it's not like that, and honestly, what they are doing is nothing compared to what Sammy has done. Anthony explains that when they were kids, Sammy was essentially paid to babysit him, and the two of them just tolerated each other. They weren't friends, they just had to be around each other. Anthony recalls Sammy physically and psychologically humiliating him, but of course, Anthony can't recall the details. How convenient. After hearing this, Betty wonders if Anthony knows what he's doing, if it's such a good idea digging up his past for this movie. And of course, Anthony tells her to trust him. At this point, days have gone by and Betty's kind of in this routine. She wakes up early, mostly before everyone else, so she really enjoys her time alone to explore and walk around. And she realizes over time that this production, this movie, is really only about Sammy. Her and Mads are only in a relationship when Sammy is there. She is only Lola when Sammy is there. Betty's generally not by herself though. She's with one of the other four most times. She's noticed that Mads and Sammy have talked before. She's also seen Sammy and Ben talk. Now it really looks like Ben and Sammy get along. So Anthony is telling Ben to press Sammy about his relationship with his mother, right? Trying to get more content for his movie. One day, the group is all sitting outside, hanging out in the sun, and Sophia tells Betty that it's her last day with them because she's going to be leaving. She needs to go to work. Betty is thinking about how Sophia knows her too well that she can't really step out away from her past. So later on, with them all hanging out outside, there's music, there's drinks, they all toast to Sophia before she leaves, and Anthony put on a specific song. Now this is the same song from their drive to the island. He had played it so many times, and Betty came to like the song, yada yada yada. Well, now she's thinking of it as their song. Suddenly, Betty's not so worried about Darla. She's not worried about Sophia not telling her, because in the end, she's come so far. And then she's thinking about her father. The memory is brief because then she comes back to the present, and with Anthony is where she is meant to be. When it gets dark, they continue the party inside. Ben and Sophia are dancing. Lola and Anthony are dancing because Betty doesn't really feel like it's her dancing with Anthony. Now, after a while of dancing, she gets dizzy, she falls onto the sofa, she falls asleep. She wakes up to Ben and Sophia on the love seat. They're getting a little bit handsy, so she's looking around for Mads and Anthony. She doesn't see either one of them, so she gets up to start looking, and she hears the sounds of their voices. Anthony is asking Mads if he can take Sammy in a fight. Mads is confident that he can, and he points out that Sammy actually has bad knees. Upon hearing this, Betty goes into the bathroom, and she's pulled back down memory lane, right? She's thinking of a time that she had gone to the zoo with her parents when she was younger. Her mom was always interested in the big cats, but she specifically recalls her mom not liking the seals because the seal's eyes were so dark and basically like unreadable. And Betty compares Sammy's eyes to the seal's eyes. Now, Betty wants to go to the guest cottage, but she doesn't. Instead, she goes into Anthony's room and calls her mom. Okay, look, if you thought Betty was bad this entire time, you're gonna love this conversation with her mother. Her mom's asking her a bunch of questions like, what's going on? Are you okay? Where are you? Betty doesn't know where she is, but she does try to explain Anthony to her mother, going so far as to tell her that she thinks she's in love with him. Please. Her mother tells her flat out that she doesn't want to hear it. She is dealing with the loss of her husband and the loss of her daughter because Betty just up and left. It was definitely a rough conversation. After her mom hangs up on her, Betty goes into the bathroom to throw up, and Anthony is right there comforting her, wondering what her mom said to her. Anthony, why are you such a creep? Betty falls asleep and wakes up again, feeling like she can't move, and she's scared. She feels like there is someone in the room with her, and she wonders if it's her father. Betty falls asleep again, knowing that everything will be okay. The next morning, Betty goes to the main house with plans to confront Anthony. And honestly, good for you, girl. She goes into the main house and Mads is passed out on the couch. The ladder to the attic room where Ben and Sophia are staying is open. And Betty's thinking about the night before and she ends up at Anthony's door. She opens it. She tells him, hey, we need to talk. Meanwhile, he's trying to wake up. So she goes to make them some coffee. And when she comes back, the two of them start to talk. Anthony is trying to provoke Sammy to get revenge. Anthony insists that that's not actually the case. Okay, but it actually is though. Anthony gaslights her some more because that's the pattern, and then Betty starts to realize that the plan is actually not for Anthony to hurt Sammy, but for her to be the one to hurt Sammy. Mads is only there for protection. Oh yeah, and you remember that psychological and physical humiliation that Sammy put Anthony through that he just could not remember? Yeah, he remembers, he lied, and so here's what happened. The two of them were around each other all of the time when they were younger. Sammy babysat Anthony, and Anthony, looking to an older Sammy, was always drawn to him with his pretty girlfriend. Young Anthony would always take Darla's pictures, and he would give her the pictures too. It was a harmless crush, wasn't a big deal. At this point, Anthony presses play on one of the videos and Betty's looking at the monitor. She's seeing a young Anthony at the guest cottage that she's actually staying at, and Sammy comes through the front door. Now it's clear from the video that young Anthony was actually expecting Darla to come through the door and not Sammy. So Sammy has Anthony get on his hands and knees and he actually puts him in like a wrestling position. I assumed it was some sort of headlock thing. I couldn't really put it together in my head, but I'm assuming because it did say like he was choking him and Anthony couldn't breathe. Mind you, Anthony is 14 and Sammy is 18. So again, in my head, I'm picturing him like in a headlock, just like squeezing this kid's neck. Yeah, it was disgusting. Darla does eventually come into the cottage and she tells Sammy to stop. But Sammy's not going to stop because Anthony needs to apologize first. At this point, Anthony pauses the video and he explains to Betty that he wants Sammy to feel the way he felt in that video. He wants Betty to push it a little bit further. He wants her to actually flirt with him now. Betty, again, she's not comfortable. She doesn't want to do it. Betty wants to leave with Sophia, but it turns out Sophia and Ben had already left. Betty realizes that she is truly alone. She goes to leave the room and Anthony basically corners her, telling her, please don't leave me here alone with him. And he kisses her. The two of them are kissing, but before they can go any farther, they hear the sound of a boat engine, and it's Ben coming back from dropping Sophia off at the main island. Anthony lets Betty know that he and Ben need to talk about the cameras because some of them have moved, so they need to make sure that they're secured properly. This will give Betty time to think about things, and he says that they'll talk later tonight. Honestly, Betty's already made her decision, but she doesn't say anything to Anthony, and he leaves the room. Betty goes back to those monitors and presses play on the video, and she's seeing a young Anthony finally giving into Sammy's demands, apologizing to him before Sammy laughs. It's really a sick kind of laugh, kind of smile he's wearing, and it really clouds her image that she has of the Sammy she has met. Now she can only picture the cruel and mean and hurtful Sammy in the video with that smile. Again, we catch Betty in a moment where she is trying to convince herself that she knows what she's doing. Betty, babe, do you know what you're doing? Fast forward to that night after dinner, Mads goes to the guest cottage, Ben goes to the bathroom, and Betty goes into Anthony's bedroom. Betty tells him straight up that he shouldn't have lied to her, but Anthony tells her, like, I only told you what you needed to know. And honestly, this guy. Still, Betty wants him to trust her, and he finally admits to her, like, hey, I didn't lie to you before. What I said at the apartment, that there's something about you, it's true. At this point, Ben tells Anthony that the bathroom's free. Anthony goes into the bathroom to take a shower. When he gets back to his room, Betty is still there. The two of them horizontal tango. And while they are doing it, he says Lola's name. This man is a walking red flag. Disgusting. Chapter 22 is pretty graphic in regard to Betty's father's suicide, so I am not going to get into it, mostly because I'm not comfortable giving you guys a complete blow-by-blow of the chapter like I've been doing. So super quick rundown of the chapter. It's really just Betty thinking about her father passing, and the last time she saw her father, she was complaining to him about her ex-boyfriend, Tuck. Her father said for her to not let him walk all over you. Betty, do you think your father would have liked Anthony? Methinks not. He would be flabbergasted at your behavior right now, Betty. Betty understands that she has a past that she can't heal from, and so does Anthony. Ben and Anthony are going to go to the mainland before a storm hits, and Betty wants to go with them, but Anthony tells Betty to stay because he doesn't want any one person to be alone. So she's going to be staying behind with Mads. He kisses her, then he and Ben leave. Sammy appears, and you guys, he saw Anthony and Lola kiss. Lola, Betty, explains that she's not actually tied down to Mads, and this gives Sammy the perfect opening. Clearly, Sammy is interested, so she opens up to him a little bit more, and it's working. Sammy eventually invites her to show her around the town and to go to dinner. Reasonably so, after seeing the recording that Anthony showed her, she's nervous to be around him by herself. And besides, there's no cameras off the island, so what's the point? Luckily, Mads shows up, puts an arm around Betty, and somewhere in here, Sammy points out that Lola can take care of herself. He eventually leaves, and Mads and Betty go inside, and Mads is kind of like, he's energetic, he's excited because he can feel that they are close. So it's been several hours now. Ben and Anthony still aren't back. The phone lines are dead, and Betty and Mads reason that they could actually be losing electricity pretty soon. Betty takes charge, and they get flashlights and start a fire. Eventually, the two hear a boat, and it turns out it's Sammy. He's towing the garbage scow, right? The boat that Ben and Anthony took to the main island. It turns out the engine died, and Sammy spotted them out on the water, and he brought them back in. And while they're unloading their groceries, Sammy's explaining to them that they need to be careful because the current is really unforgiving and it's very strong. Anthony reluctantly offers Sammy to stay for lunch. He doesn't want to, but let's be real, it's a good opportunity for his movie. But Sammy points out that he's got plans with Lola, if she still wants to go with him, that is. Mads steps in and Sammy insists that she wanted to go with him. At this point, Mads grabs Lola. Now, right, he's an actor, so he's really grabbing her. He's asking her why. Why would she do this? And Betty's kind of like, she understands it's not real, but she's so in the moment and the reality of the situation is hitting her. Now, Sammy steps in and tells Mad to take his hands off of her. Eventually, Betty is pushed out of the way, and she can't help but feel bad for Sammy. He has no idea what's going on. Sammy tells Lola to come with him, but Mads shoves him. Betty yells for Mads not to hurt Sammy, but Anthony is holding her back. Now Sammy rushes Mads, pins him to the ground, and is telling him to apologize. Of course, Betty's thinking that this is exactly what was going on in the video that Anthony showed her. Mads does apologize, and Sammy gets off of him, but not before breaking one of his knees. He then turns to Lola, asking her if she's going to go with him, and she says no. Sammy turns and leaves, telling them that he's going to fix the engine on their boat. So now they all get Mads into the house, sit him on the couch, prop up his leg, and Mads wants to go to the hospital. Betty goes to Anthony's room to try the phone, but Nothing. Line's dead. Her attention is pulled by Ben's voice. Mads is now trying to stand up with the help of a broom. He wants to leave. And honestly, I don't blame him. But unfortunately, the storms hit and they have no way off the island. At this point, Mads points out that he can't protect Betty. And he's done with this movie. Ben agrees, and honestly, I would say Anthony's in denial. He wants to keep making the movie. He's like,
Mads, you agreed to this.
I'm pretty sure Mads didn't agree to getting his knee broken. Ben says Sammy sabotaged their boat, and then Betty chimes in saying that he probably cut the phone lines as well. Anthony says that they need to stick together, and Mads is angry. He realizes that Anthony's still worried about this movie. He wants them scared. He wants them panicking. That's the point. Ben talks Mads down and gets him back to the sofa. At this point, Anthony tries to talk to Betty, but she doesn't want to talk to him. She tells him, I'm going to the guest cottage. I'm going to take a shower. We can talk when I come back. I'm going to jump in here for a second, you guys, because I kind of liked this moment because this is the first time Betty is seeing this man she's got on a pedestal, scared, worried. He's in over his head, and to see her see that was super interesting. Loved it. Finally, Betty gets to the guest cottage. She opens the door, she steps inside, and she stops. She's just thinking for a moment. She thinks about this unfamiliar smell in the cottage, and maybe it's the smell that made her stop, or maybe it was the other set of wet footprints on the floor ahead of her own. She spots a shadow in the corner of the room, and she's reminded of her dreams, and she's thinking this is her father, but the figure steps toward her, and it's Sammy. Sammy tells her not to be scared. He just wants to show her who Anthony really is. Betty considers running, but honestly, how far can she actually get? So she sits at the edge of the bed, kind of like away from him, and he tosses her ID on the bed beside her, and she's not Lola, she's Betty, whatever her name is. He's kind of having a hard time articulating what he's trying to get across to her, and he wonders if Anthony has told her about their past. She lies to Sammy and tells him he hasn't told her anything. Sammy pulls out a photo of Darla and shows it to Betty. Darla is topless, and he lets her know that this is a photo that Anthony took when they were younger. Darla and Sammy didn't take Anthony's crush on her seriously, but then he was watching her in the shower. He was watching her undressing. Then he was taking the pictures. Sammy realizes that he did it then, and he's doing it again now. Sammy finally says that he didn't humiliate Anthony. What he was doing was teaching him a lesson. He meant well. Sammy starts to get worked up and he calls Betty Darla. She corrects him, but he doesn't care. It doesn't matter. This is about her and him. He admits that he knew Anthony was up to something, but when he saw Betty, he just couldn't look away. Sammy kisses her and Betty's trying to get him off, but she can't. She's only able to push him off because he gets off of her. And the expression on his face is hurt, confused, and then he gets angry. Before she can even say anything to him, Anthony busts open the door. You guys, it was super dramatic. He busts open the door and he tells Sammy, get your hands off of her. Okay. Anthony asks Betty if she's okay, and she is. Sammy offers a hand to him, and Anthony, for whatever reason, takes his hand, and Sammy's like squeezing it. Yeah. This isn't a professional handshake. He's threatening the guy, so he's squeezing his hand. He's hurting him. Betty tells him to let him go, and Sammy does. Once Anthony is free, he actually shoves Sammy, and in this moment, you can really tell that Anthony is hyper aware of his camera angles and how this is gonna look. For his movie, Anthony now is provoking Sammy, calling Sammy out. 18-year-old Sammy trying to marry a 16-year-old Darla. Darla didn't want to marry him. She was scared of him. And on top of that, he reveals that he wasn't spying on Darla. She was posing. Of course, Sammy, angry, he makes a move. Somehow Betty tried to help, but she ended up on the floor. Now they're all outside in the rain. She is yelling for them to stop, and she realizes in like a flash of a moment that she is Darla in the video, trying to get Sammy to stop. By the end of all of this scuffling, Sammy has Anthony, like he's choking him, at the shore, so he's in the water. Betty is just yelling for Mads and Ben, but let's be real, Ben's not gonna do anything. Mads got a broken knee. It is a very intense moment because you can tell how close Anthony is to dying before he gets a rock, smacks Sammy over the head with it. There is blood everywhere. Sammy falls over. Anthony gets free. Betty runs over to Sammy saying like, help, we need to help him. Like there is blood everywhere, you guys. Sammy gets up and he's saying to them that he's going to go to his mom. She's going to know what to do. Betty tries to stop him, but Anthony holds her back, telling her that he is going to go make sure that Sammy is okay and for Ben to take her back to the house. Betty goes to take a shower. Ben takes her clothes to wash them, and after her shower, she goes into Anthony's room, gets some of his clothes to put on, and she looks out the window and sees Ben and Anthony approaching the main house. She goes into the hallway to listen to their conversation, and Ben wants to know what happened. Anthony tells him it was self-defense. After he realized how hard he really hit Sammy, he followed him to make sure that he was okay, and he was okay. Anthony takes his clothes off for Ben to wash, then he goes to take a shower. Mads, Betty, and Ben, they're still trying to understand what happened. Sammy tried to kill Anthony, actually tried to kill Anthony. They need to get off the island before Sammy comes back. Later on, Betty and Anthony are in bed together, and neither one of them say anything. Now, hours have passed, and Anthony is whispering an apology to her. Mind you, Betty is like pretending she's asleep. He's whispering an apology to her. He admits that he loves her, and he doesn't want her to leave him. Yeah, no. Betty, girl, it's not too late to run. It is too late to run. Betty wakes up first as usual. She gets some coffee and she sits outside on the porch to think about everything that's happened. Eventually, everybody else starts to wake up. Ben joins her on the porch and he wonders, what do they do now? Unfortunately, Betty doesn't get the opportunity to respond because they hear a boat approaching. It's Sammy. Like, they're kind of freaking out, but just kidding. It's Mrs. O. She's wondering where Sammy is, if any of them have seen him, because he didn't come home last night and his boat was found drifting out to sea. Of course, Anthony, being Anthony, he lies to Mrs. O. He tells her, well, part of the truth, right? He tells her they went to get groceries. On their way back, the engine died. Sammy towed them back, and then Sammy let them know that he was going to fix the engine for them. That was the last time they saw him. But of course, now that the storm has cleared up, they'll look for him. Anthony helps Mrs. O disconnect the boat, so she actually brought their boat back. Now that she's closer to Anthony, she's wondering what happened to him. He says that they got caught up in the storm, but she's saying it kind of looks like he got into a fight. Anthony was about to respond, but before he could, she just got on her boat and she left. Ben doesn't understand why Anthony lied. Sammy is either lying dead somewhere or he's running around with like a gash in his head. Either way, Ben and Mads are leaving. Oh my gosh, but what about the movie, you guys? Screw the movie. Ben and Mads will stick to his story. It was self-defense, but the two of them are gone. Anthony looks to Betty for help to try to keep them there. But she looks to Anthony and she tells him, let them go. We don't need them. They all go to the mainland and they take the van to get back to the train station. Anthony gives Mads and Ben some money, telling them that he'll cut their checks when he gets back to the city. To his credit, Anthony is apologetic that things had gotten so far, but he wants to make it clear to Mads and Ben that he did not kill Sammy. Then he tells the two of them that he is thankful for them. And Ben says once he gets his money, he kind of trails off, but Anthony knows what he means. Hey, no hard feelings if you don't want to be friends anymore after that. No big deal. They're all saying their goodbyes, but Mads stops at Betty, asking her if she is sure that she doesn't want to go with them, and she says she's going to stay with Anthony. On the drive back, Betty realizes that finally she feels happiness. Anthony slows the van down at Mrs. O's store with the sign saying that they're closed. He then reveals to Betty that Sammy is actually dead. Betty is thinking that no one of them can say anything because technically they're all to blame. They were all involved. Back at the island on the pier, Betty asks Anthony if he's okay. Anthony flips it around and asks her the same question. He then calls her by her name, Betty. Betty realizes she's not just Lola to him anymore. Please. By sunset, Anthony is on the couch on his laptop and eventually Betty comes to join him. She tells him that she wants to tell him something and he tells her he knows, but she insists. Betty reveals to Anthony that she knew that her father was going to commit suicide. He had told her before when she was younger. She didn't know how, she didn't know when, she didn't know why. She never asked, and her father never told her. She just had told him that she was sad about it, but he told her not to be sad because he wasn't sad. After a while of Betty expecting it to happen and it not happening, she didn't believe him anymore. A few months ago, the same trip in Iceland, he brought it up again. When they got home from the trip, she didn't say anything, and 2 days later is when it happened. She then reveals that she's never told this to anyone, not even her mother, and she feels like this secret is what drove a wedge in their relationship, and she doesn't want secrets to get in the way of her relationship with Anthony, which is exactly why she wants to know if Anthony knows what she did. Anthony pulls up a video file on his laptop and hits play. It shows Sammy walking away, Anthony following him, Ben pulling Betty back to the main house, Mads following them, and after some time passes, the video shows a figure climbing out of the window. Now this figure is taking the same path that Anthony and Sammy took, and it turns out it's Betty. Betty finally catches up to the two men, and she hears Anthony calling out for Sammy, trying to help him. Sammy nearly falls, but Anthony's right there and catches him. He's saying, "Hey, Sammy, come back to the main house. We'll clean you up. We will help you." And not for nothing, Sammy doesn't want Anthony's help. This was the plan, right? This is what Anthony wanted. Anthony was calm in this entire situation, deciding that he has no control over what Sammy does. If Sammy doesn't want his help, then fine. Anthony leaves. Betty stayed and followed Sammy to his boat, where she realized he was grabbing something. She called out to him, asking him not to call the police. Sammy reveals that that's not his plan. He is not going to call the cops. Then she sees that he actually pulled a gun out of the boat. Before she knew it, she had a thick branch in her hand and she hit Sammy in the head with it. He fell into the water, and after she realized he was dead, she sent the branch, the gun, and his boat out, and the current took everything. While the moment of her murdering somebody comes to a close on his laptop, she is mesmerized by Anthony. This is completely unhinged, okay? So she's looking at him and she's wondering if he knew that she killed Sammy when he said her name on the pier. He tells her that he saw it. He saw everything. It was self-defense. The two of them then stare at each other, which they do that a lot throughout this entire book. Betty then realizes belatedly, like, hey, the cameras, the movie. She can't bring herself to tell Anthony, you can't make this movie. She follows Anthony into his office with all of the monitors, and she wonders what he's going to do. They stare at each other again. In his eyes, her feelings shift. She knows that she is certain and ready for the future. She then tells Anthony to delete everything, and she hugs him. Betty, what? Okay, so with the deep dive out of the way, let's get into my final thoughts. It's gonna be super quick because this book did something that I haven't seen in any of the books that I've read so far for this series. It asks questions for discussion, so I do want to get into that. And I feel like you're going to get some more of my final thoughts in my answers, so I'm going to kind of just mash it together. Let's go. I really enjoyed the distinction between Lola and Betty. It really felt like out of body when she felt like Lola, or when she saw Lola when she was Lola. I really liked at the time how Betty felt torn between Anthony and her father. Again, the moment where her father was telling her about Tuck, her father said, "Don't let him walk all over you." That's Anthony. And the fact that it wasn't the payoff I wanted really just made me kind of frustrated. Now, while I did not like Betty from start to finish, I did like to see the conflict within her. It was very interesting to see how that conflict kind of propelled her forward. And I think what I liked the most, besides the descriptions, was the truth. Who can you trust? Who is lying? And how much of the lie is the truth? How much of the truth is the lie? I think the deception was really interesting. Dislikes. Anthony. Full stop, period. That's it. Did not like him. Start to finish. I couldn't stand him. This book was really difficult for me to really read. I don't think I really started to power through it until closer to the end because I was just very disappointed in Betty. She was not making the right decisions. The decisions I guess I felt were the right ones, and it was just frustrating to see her backslide and not, like, the red flags were in her face. And I was just so disappointed. So with my likes and dislikes out of the way, let's get into the discussion questions. Question number 1 is, if you were in Betty's position, would you have said yes to Anthony's offer? Would you have stayed on the island and acted in the movie? Why or why not? I'm not gonna lie. For me personally, in my life right now, ain't nobody got time for that. A walking red flag, I'm gonna turn around, go the other way. There are other options. Yes, it is a lot of money. It was $20,000 up front, $20,000 when they finished. That is a lot of money, and it could be very helpful in this economy. But honestly, no. He's a complete stranger. He was a red flag as soon as he showed up. Like, first page he showed up, I was like, no, not okay, not safe. And he was rude and he was creepy. No, absolutely not. Would I have stayed on the island and acted in the movie? Let's assume that I got that far. No, I would have left. I don't want to be on an island. What? Like, unless we're on vacation, which this is not. No. Why or why not? Why? Why would I put myself in a position like that? No. Question number 2. Do you think Sophia knew what she was getting her friend into when she introduced Betty to Anthony? How does this make you feel about Sophia? Honestly, I'm not going to lie. I don't think we got enough information about Sophia to answer the question. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I wasn't too far into it. I would say that she didn't know. And I feel nothing about Sophia. But early on in the book, there was mention of the fact that Betty and Sophia were high school friends, but the kind of friendship where you have high school friends, but then you just don't talk to them for several years. And then for her to jump back into that friendship, like they weren't really talking in the time between, you know what I mean? So I felt some type of way about that, but to see that not really be an issue. There were moments where Betty felt like she wasn't included and she felt like there was some tension between her and Sophia, but because it wasn't fully fleshed out and explored in a way that would make me feel anything towards Sophia, I would say no. I don't think she knew. And I feel nothing for Sophia. She's just there. Question number 3. Over the course of the relationship, we see that Betty and her mother's relationship is strained. Who is more to blame for the way their relationship has deteriorated, Betty or her mother? I'm not going to pick either or. I am going to go with both of them because, let's be real, it takes two to tango. They're both at fault. And it's a wonder, what can you do to mend the type of relationship? Because Betty is actively turning her back on her mother. She's actively running. But again, her mother is actively shutting doors in Betty's face. She's overbearing. But at the same time, it's kind of, you know what I mean? Her mom's like, you need to come home. You can't do this by yourself. You need me. Like, come home. At least that's how Betty is perceiving it. And then her mom is like, she just lost her husband. Now her daughter just left with some dude to make a movie on a private island. I go, what does that sound like to you? I would say they are absolutely both to blame. What they need, communication, probably counseling, probably therapy. Question number 5. Was Anthony abusing his power as a celebrity and the film's director in his relationship with Betty? Is this even a question? Yes, absolutely yes. And if you don't think so, open your eyes, watch the video again, read the book, because this man is... Absolutely. Because at every moment that Betty pulled away from him, he touched her thigh. He cornered her in the room and kissed her. He had sex with her. It's these moments where he's like, he knows that he's up here and Betty's down here. He knows it. So every moment she was like, maybe not. He's like, oh, let me kind of... no. I mean, yes, he did. Yes. Red flag. Question number 5. Is Betty a willing participant in this film, or has she been taken advantage of? Has she chosen what she wants? I think this is a little tough, and I think maybe in the way that I'm going to answer it, I would say yes, she is a willing participant, but she was taken advantage of. And I would say yes, she has chosen what she wants. So if I break it down, she is a willing participant, but so many moments in the book, she has to like convince herself that she knows what she's doing and that this is the right thing to do. She is not confident, but I do feel like she needs to do what she is doing because, again, her relationship with Anthony. Has she been taken advantage of? Yes, absolutely, 100 times. Yes. See question number 4. She has been taken advantage of through and through. Has she chosen what she wants? Yes, because I think she's got like blinders on, and it's wild because I think she chose what she thinks she wants, what she needs to want in order to separate herself from her past, her mother, so on. Yeah, it's kind of a tough one, but hopefully that makes sense. Question number 6. Is fear really Anthony's way of working through past trauma, or is he being vengeful? I kind of read through the questions before I started filming, but for this one, I didn't really have an answer because Anthony, just the way his character is, I feel like it could go either way because at the end of the day, we still don't know the truth of his past because he told one story, which was like half a story. Then Sammy told another story. Then Anthony piled on top of it. So what's the truth? And I feel like his past is the key to the answer for this question. Now, maybe again with the other question, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I didn't read it close enough. But I feel like it could go either way because let's be real. He and Betty are like essentially the same character. You could go so far as to argue that she's also working through her past trauma, or in killing Sammy, was she being vengeful? So I think it's a matter of perception. I feel like it could be a bit of both. I mean, why couldn't it be both? I'd be interested to see what you think. Let me know down below. Question number 7. Discuss Betty's relationship with her father. Why do you think he told Betty he was planning on committing suicide? Do you think he was being manipulative in any way? So starting from the bottom, working to the top, I don't think he was being manipulative at all. A couple months before the beginning of the book was when he had passed. So it seemed like they had a really good relationship. And I don't see why he would be manipulative, especially with the comment he made about her ex, Tuck, saying for her to not let him walk over her. So I feel like no. But then why would he tell her that he was planning to do it? I think that's an interesting question because I remember when I was reading the chapter, when she said she knew about it, I was like, why? Why would he tell her? And especially because it went so far back as him telling her before when she was younger. Maybe because the two of them were so close, he was confiding in her. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. Because he didn't tell the wife. Betty didn't tell her mother either. So it was like their secret. Question number 8. Was Sammy's death really a matter of self-defense? Who is complicit in his death and why? Was Sammy's death self-defense? I'm going to hard no. There was the moment where Sammy was choking Anthony on the beach. Anthony, the descriptions, he was dying. So yes, smacking him over the head with a rock. Okay. There was a lot of blood. I would have drawn the line. Maybe draw the line there. Where do you draw the line? Self-defense. But the reason why, don't come after me. The reason why I'm saying it was not self-defense is because based off of how it happened, Betty killed Sammy in defense of her future with Anthony. Because, and I'm gonna pull up the book so I can tell you exactly what she said, because I was shocked. She was completely unhinged for a moment. Okay, so in chapter 33, when she was telling Anthony what she had done, he was playing it on the computer, she tells him, don't call the police. And she's thinking to herself, don't do this to me. Because at this point, Betty feels like she's found her happiness. She's found peace She's found closure. She's found this all in Anthony. If Sammy were to call the cops, he would rip that from her. Again, she would be back to square one. She couldn't let that happen. So was Betty killing Sammy self-defense? I would say no. I feel like there were some other steps we could have taken before we smacked him in the head with a branch and killed him. Ooh, I almost moved to the last question. Who is complicit in his death and why? I feel like as it stood before Betty told us what was happening, I feel like they were all pretty complicit because they were all there. They all knew what happened. As it stands right now, I guess you could argue that they're all four still complicit, but I'm leaning toward more her and Anthony, but I would say all four of them. But truth be told, Mads and Ben are operating under the assumption that he's missing. And I think if he does turn up dead, then yeah, self-defense. So, okay, more I'm thinking about it, I'm going to say all four of them. Okay, question number 9 and the last question. What does the future hold for Betty and Anthony? One of the major themes in the novel is the meaning of intimacy and the role secrets play in relationships. Do you think Betty and Anthony will be able to find happiness given the secret they now share? I'm gonna say yes, because let's be real. Again, I've said it before, I feel like the two of them are a little, not delusional. I know I had said it before, but the more I think about it, not delusional. They're hurt. They're traumatized. They're fractured. They are coping with, they're fighting their trauma with someone else's trauma. They're finding comfort in each other and bonding over their past. And I do think that the secret is a non-issue. If anything, it is something that brought them closer together. And it is messed up to say, but let's be real. That's what happened, right? That's how I feel about the book. That is how I feel about Betty. Anthony Marino, do not like him, but thumbs up on the video if you like the video, so I know you like the video. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of One Bam. The next episode of One Bam is going to round out our TikTok book talk recommendations, so I'm very excited to get to that last book. But until the next video, spread positivity, whatever you're going through, you got this. Do not be like Betty. See the red flags, run the other way. Take care of yourself. Bye.